Welcome to the Gilbert GonZealous group, purveyor of food at the proper time, food for thought, and the SSS, the Spiritual Snitching Society. We're a new type of society. We do everything in the open.
That is so Satan.
The views expressed by our guests are not the opinions of any elder body or Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, but they should be. Any similarities to any deceased governing body member is purely coincidental. What you're about to experience is an honest debate forum of maturely trained and seasoned Christians. Do not attempt this at home.
Hello, and welcome back to the Gilbert GonZealous group, to another special edition where we have 3 ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and 2 current Jehovah's Witnesses as guests, where we will be discussing topics of interest of Jehovah's Witnesses, current and former. Now, let's get started. First, we have a lady whom everybody would be honored to have as her friend, our friend Becca, or Cucu for the truth. Thank you, Becca, for coming. Our brother, who recently has suffered collateral damage from Watchtower's henchmen, he goes by his street name, Jack Black, Mr. Jack Coley. And our sister with a brain, yes, a life coach. Yes, her brain scares the likes of Samuel Hurd of the governing body. Yes, the lovely Sylviane Nuccio. Please visit her webpage, sylvianenuccio.com. Welcome. Now let's get started. Let's go with question 1. Watchtower says no to politics. However, they teach global warming. They say nothing about radical Islam. They are anti-gun and anti-Second Amendment. Members of the UN, NGO, etc., etc. Are the leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses progressive leftists, socialists, or just plain stupid? Let's start with Becca.
Hi Gilbert, thank you for having me on your show. I think the Watchtower does a really good job in keeping you out of politics. I don't know that much about politics, thanks in part to Watchtower. Honestly, I really didn't think that I would need to be on the political scene, so I didn't really worry about that. So it is a lot to kind of figure out, but I think what the main thing that Watchtower wants to do is to have you fearful, to create an atmosphere of fear and worry. And then what they want to do is they want to tie your hands so that you have a sense of dependency on them and to give you a feeling of helplessness. And they don't want you to participate. They don't want you to feel like to have any kind of empowerment or feel like you can make a difference or an impact. So they want to promote that helplessness so that in turn you rely on them. It's all about fear and becoming reliant on the organization for all of your answers to all of your problems. And the political arena is no different than that. It's fear and come to us and we'll take care of you. So I think that's the whole reason for that. And I think they do a really good job at keeping people in the dark and feeling helpless, all at the same time.
Atmosphere of fear. Great point. Now let's go to Jack.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Gilbert, for having me on the show. It's an honor, and I feel that I can die now. So it's a wonderful privilege to be a part of this. I would say that the leadership, the governing body, their helpers, they're very disconnected from reality. And this is something that I ranted about while I was even in the organization, because to me, they don't live in a real world. they live in a dream world. You know, they live within 10 square miles of the area that they reside at. They don't sit in traffic. They don't work. They're not raising families. So I feel they're very disconnected from what's happening in the world around them. And so, as far as their policies on not being part of the world, not being involved with politics, well, they can't allow that, Gilbert, because then they're relinquishing control of the minds of those that are members of the organization. And so I believe they're very aware of what they're doing, and that it's a way of maintaining control on their part.
Isn't it true? It's always about control. Thank you very much. Let's go to Sylviane.
Hi everyone. Hi Gilbert. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Very excited to be here. It's a very cool show, so I'll try my best to answer your questions. Question number one. Well, I'm not sure if they are progressive leftists or if they are stupid, but what I think is that they sure hope that everybody else will be stupid enough to believe what they want us to believe. For example, well, on one hand, we know that they are no part of the world, right? And on the other hand, they are doing things that are very questionable. For example, they have their tax records, and we know tax records are public. And if you look, you'll see that on some of their public tax records, they have invested since 2002 stocks, thousands and thousands of dollars, maybe millions in the stock market. They are investing in companies that are very much from this world, some of them making guns, making war machines. So that alone tells you a lot. Then the global warming. Well, global warming, they love it because it fits one of their beliefs, which is that mankind can't fix it or can't seem to be able to fix it, but God will fix it in its own due time. Now, as far as radical Islam, I think they don't really want to get involved with that, maybe out of fear, and also maybe because it reminds their own radical thinking. Now, when it comes to a gun, again, guns, as I just mentioned, they are investing in companies that do make guns. But anyway, I do remember when I was a Jehovah's Witness that they would tell you that, it would be better if someone came with a gun in your house trying to kill you. It would be better to be killed than to try to defend yourself with a gun. So yes, on one hand, they are very against gun, right? And on the other hand, they invest stock in companies that make guns. Very interesting. As far as the UN, wow. I was in the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses when they were involved, when they were members of the UN. And I never knew that. I never heard about anyone saying anything about the Watchtower being involved with the UN. So that tells a lot. So I don't know if they are stupid or if they are progressive leftists, but I am sure that they are very cunning and they try to make us believe things very different from the truth.
It does make you think, doesn't it? Now, folks, our next guest is Matthew Mark. And he's begging to come back on the show. And I said no to him. But he sends me an email every day just begging for me to be back on the show. So I said, okay, you can only answer one time. Matthew Mark is a Jehovah's Witness elder in the Phoenix area, and he has decided to stay as an elder to help as many people get out. So I can't blow his cover, but he desperately wants to be an active apostate. But he finds that he can do more work inside the Kingdom Hall. So, okay, Matthew Mark, what say you?
I invented the internet. Remember those words? Spoken by a true American politician, leader, and some might say a left leaning ideologue. JW.org lives by the internet, the World Wide Web. Their symbol is almost an image of the UN symbol. The backdrop and colors are identical. If Jesus died on a stake, why can't the stake be our symbol, or the wine glass and bread? No, we are a worldly organization dressed as a Christian religion. A modern day translation for a wolf in sheep's clothing. We are the most political bastardization of a Christian church today. UN NGO membership? My God Jehovah forgive us, for we do not know what Watchtower does. The teachings of Christian neutrality is nothing more than the handicapping a nation's struggle towards freedom. No, JW.org is not a Christian organization. It is a petri dish religious experiment of a corrupt progressive socialist agenda.
Thank you, Matthew Mark. Now, please go back to your literature card, okay? Now, question 2. My plastic microphone brought out a very good point. You have 40, 50, 60-year-old men, accomplished men, passing out microphones and who still do not qualify to be elders. Now, are we in high school? Why is there so much emphasis on the word qualify? And what does qualify really mean? Let's go, Becca.
Qualify usually means that you have a certain skill set in order to do a job that needs to be done. I think with elders, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're qualified. I think it just means that you are in line because your numbers are right, or certain circumstances, or that they're just desperate for an elder. In some congregations where they need elders, they'll it's just out of desperation that they'll choose a particular brother. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they have the skill set. You would think that being an elder would mean that you would be an older man who has life experience, who's seen a lot of things and been a lot been a lot of places, has compassion for people in different situations that they may find themselves in. To lead the congregation, you would have to be a people person, but it doesn't always work out that way. I think a lot of times it's just a matter of, who looks best on paper, frankly. Who has the family that, that they go to the meetings with, who don't miss, who get their time out in service, and, and that's the one that's going to be an elder, more than likely someone who's just, an older man who's kind and loving and approachable. I don't necessarily think that these are the qualities that are always met when they're choosing elders. Fortunately for me, just being female, I don't qualify for that. And I'm really glad, because what a burden that is to put on people to be a taskmaster and to ride the backs of the organization, the people within the organization, in the congregation. So, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean older, experienced gentlemen that who are in a position to lead. So that's what I know about elders. So make of it what you will.
I agree. You're right on all the points. Let's go to Jack.
I love this topic about qualifying for service, self-appointing groups. I believe that the word qualify, the way they use it, basically means that they decide who gets to be an elder or a servant. And they'll run you into the ground, they'll work you into the ground with assignments and so forth. But they will not appoint you if you don't get along to go along. And so to me, that word qualify means that, do we like you? Will you kiss our butt? Will you do what we say? If you're the kind of person that has a personality where you think for yourself and you evaluate things, they'll never appoint you, because they don't want you in there. They don't want to be questioned. They don't want any decisions that come down from the governing body to be questioned. So it's another control mechanism, in my opinion, using the word qualify or qualifying for privileges. So I believe it's a good old boys club that is basically helps them to maintain control by using the word qualify.
Good old boys club. That is so true. Now let's go to Sylviane.
Well, frankly, I am not 100% sure about that. But I think, first of all, that any of us, any ex-JWs or present Jehovah's Witnesses, have seen elders that don't seem to be quite qualified to be elders, yet they were or they are elders. But to me, what would qualify an elder for them to be perfectly qualified to be an elder would be someone that is perfectly indoctrinated. If they are totally indoctrinated, that nothing from the outside comes through them, for them, that's probably the perfect type of brother to be an elder. That's my take on that.
Perfectly indoctrinated. Wow. What two words can say? Perfectly indoctrinated. Thank you, Sylviane. Oh, we have a special guest, Jeffrey Jackson of the governing body. What say you, Jeffrey?
I'll tell you, JW Christ, is what it means. Qualify means to be eligible for, to meet the requirements for, to be entitled to be permitted, to be counted, to be considered, to be designated, to be eligible, to be certified, to be licensed, to pass, to make the grade, succeed, to pass muster, to be allowed, to be permitted, to be licensed, to be equipped, to be prepared, to be trained and be educated, to teach and be teachable, to modify, to limit, restrict, make conditional, to moderate, to temper, and to modulate, and to mitigate. And that is our responsibility as governing body members. That's the responsibility we have. We have to keep Jehovah's house clean by setting standards and enforcing them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Now, question 3. Teenagers. They must be loving and respecting of their parents. Their good mental health and future depend on it. What do you say to the teenager who ignored the rated R sign at the beginning of this show and others? What do you say to the JW teenager who loves his parents but is held hostage by the local elders and watchtower? Let's start with Becca.
If you go see a rated R movie, your life is not going to shatter into a million pieces. I don't care what anybody tells you. You're going to be okay. You're a teenager, you want to go out, you want to experience things, you want to have fun. That's all good. It's what teenagers do. It's going to be okay. So everybody just calm down over the rated R movies. It's ridiculous. If you are a teenager within the organization, unfortunately, you are going to have to be the mature one. You are going to have to take charge of your education. If you can, I would suggest that you try to get into some sort of higher education program, whatever that might be, which may be an uphill battle for you. Of course, there's that pressure to try to get you out in the ministry, to try to get you into a job as soon as possible, but really fight for your education. It's the best thing for you. It's the best thing to set up your future. So I would do that. I would plan. I would put money aside. I would save if you can, so that you can leave whenever you need to. Whatever you do, stay out of that dunk tank. That is important because that is the beginning of the end for you. Once you do that, they've got you, and they're going to put all kinds of demands on your back. And suddenly your life is no longer your own. You've handed it over to them. And that might be hard because they're really getting hard on teenagers with, the new blackmail policies that they have for youngsters. They want to, hold your driver's license if you don't get baptized. So they're really applying some really serious pressure on young ones to get baptized, and the ages are getting younger and younger and younger. So I'm going to tell you to stay out of that. Stand your ground, because that is a decision that you make when you are ready, and no one can force or should force or try to pressure you into doing something that you are not ready to do. So I'm going to say hold your ground and plan for your future.
Stand your ground. Excellent advice. Now, Jack.
Another rock solid topic, teenagers and the turmoils and the struggles that they deal with in the organization. If I could surmise this in one word, I would say to help them, you have to humanize the brothers. And Kyla's and I experienced in the organization, we had all kinds of people over our homes. We did dinners, a lunch, Super Bowl parties. And I found that when the teenagers got to know me, they saw me drink a beer, they saw me yell at my wife or my kids, and they understood that even though I was a spiritual man that loved my family, they realized I was just human. I was like everybody else. And so helping teenagers that are struggling in the organization, that may be scared or fearful of the things that are done by the elders, we have to get them to see that these elders are just human beings, like you and me, trying to make it. For the most part, I believe they're doing the best they can, but they're just people. They didn't come down out of heaven. They didn't receive some divine assignment from God. They're people that are part of a religion that are doing the best they can. And so if you can spend time mentoring a teenager and they can get to know you and know that you're a real person, you can help them in their struggle. You can help them to know that there's hope and that it's okay if they decide that they want to leave the organization. So in one word, humanize the elders, and that will get them to break free from the fear they have of the organization.
Humanize the brothers. So true. Sylviane.
Very interesting question here. Well, when it comes to R-rated material, every time I hear about R-rated material, the first thing that comes to mind, it's the Bible itself. The Bible it's got them all, okay? It's got violence, it's got murder, it's got genocide, it's got adultery, it's got betrayal, it's got incest, and it's got sex. The Bible has it all. Even in today's world, 2016, the Bible is the most R-rated book you could ever read. However, this said, I would not suggest a teenager to go see a R movie just for the fun of it, just to go see violence or negative stuff, because it's bad for you. Not for the watchtower, but really going to see an R movie because it's very violent. If it's very violent, it's not healthy. Frankly, as a coach, I would never advise not only a teenager, but an adult, anyone, to go see violence, for example. So that's the first thing I would say. Now, when it comes to see an R-rated movie, and the movie is R-rated because it's got 2 bad words in it, or a love scene maybe, not a big deal, I would not make a big deal out of that at all. This is not something that would be bad for you. And it's just R-rated because they have to put that R-rated stuff on it because it's got those 2 bad words, or it's got, this man and woman in some bed at some point. But that's not a big deal. Now, when it comes to give advice to a teenager that feels stuck between their parents' belief and the watchtower, well, if they have listening parents, I would advise them to try to speak to them, to try to voice their concern. A very good way to voice your concern to your parents would be maybe asking them questions so you can bring in your concern. Jehovah's Witnesses are very good at that. That's what they do at the door when they go preach to people. They ask questions so the person in front of them can answer the question, and then they can come in with their own beliefs and stuff. You can do the same thing with your parents. But whatever you do, you need to do it in a calm manner, because if you do it in a rebellious manner, that's not going to work. For example, a brother who was waking up from the watchtower indoctrination and wanted his wife to wake up as well, what he did with his wife is, he would have her read a Bible verse and tell her, what do you think? What do you think about this Bible verse? But really, what do you think with your own thinking ability, not what the watchtower tells you to think? And it worked for him. It really worked for him and his wife. She woke up as he woke up because she reacted to the Bible verse the same way he reacted to it when they were not thinking about watchtower thinking. So the last thing I would want to say is it's maybe not easy, but your life is yours to live. You are not going to live the life of your parents, and you're certainly not going to live the life of the Watchtower organization. So I would advise any teenager who doesn't feel comfortable to voice it and not to be scared. Fear will stop you before you even start. So try to not be fearful. Try to express your concern in a calm manner, and maybe little by little, you'll be able to get out of this organization. Even if your parents don't agree, at least you would not get baptized and get into the trouble that getting baptized and then going out of the organization would bring to you.
That was a great answer. Let's go on to question 4. Depression runs high among Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I believe it is partly because of success. That's my opinion. With Watchtower, you give and you give and you give, but the results are not commensurate with the effort put in, especially since you have the truth and you're God's organization here on earth. So what are your thoughts on depression? Becca.
It is rampant within the organization. You are always having more and more loaded upon your back. The bar is always being raised higher and higher and higher. I mean, if you have 4 kids and you went out 20 hours in service, you're going to hear an example of a woman with 10 kids who's missing a leg and missing an eye and did twice as much as you did. The bar is always being raised on you. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to give enough. And you have nothing left over for yourself. It's an organization that robs you of joy. So yeah, depression is rampant. Even outside the organization, I mean, the time, the years, the decades that's been stolen from people, the families that have been torn apart over this organization. I mean, depression is huge. You have no self-worth within the organization. They're always burdening you down. Your life is not your own. I mean, what's to be happy about? And then on top of all of that, you're serving the happy God. You're supposed to be labeled as one of the happiest people. so you can't even voice, what you're feeling. Your feelings are have to be buried. You can't even express, how unhappy or depressed that you might be. You're not encouraged to go seek help for any kind of depression that you may have. If you have a chemical imbalance, well, depression is huge inside and outside the organization. They really create a lot of hardship for a lot of people. And, just from personal experience, I can tell you that I was extremely depressed within the organization, and I feel much, much better since I left.
You're right. It is never enough. I personally call them an ungrateful society. Jack, what do you say?
Well, I hate to say this, Gilbert, but the Watchtower kind of got this one right. It's been said over and over again from the stage, especially when I was in the organization, that depression is not a spiritual problem. it's a physical one. And they're right. I mean, someone that's dealing with depression, that's down, that has low self-esteem, a lot of those things have to do with somebody's upbringing, their environment, the mental disposition that's kind of been put into them over the years by the organization, by their friends. And so it's something that on a world scale, people have to deal with depression. And I think the enigma with it in the organization is that we're God's people. You know, we have the truth. We shouldn't be depressed. But like anything else in life, it's a part of being human. It's a part of being a person with real feelings. You're going to deal with depression. And so it has nothing to do with religion. I don't think it has particularly anything more to do with being a JW or a Catholic or a Protestant. You're going to deal with depression. Now, one of the aspects of your question that you asked talked about constantly chasing your tail and privileges and trying to measure up. And I will say this, that it can beat you down. Trying to measure up as a witness and qualify for this privilege and chase that privilege you can almost implode. It can just become too much for you to handle. So I'll say that it may be more prevalent in the JW religion because there's so much that you're chasing. But for the most part, it's a human problem. Depression has nothing to do with spirituality. It just has to do, to me, with your environment and your mental dispositions.
And what an environment the Jehovah's Witness community is. You're right, Jack. Sylviane, go ahead.
The question about depression. Now, 8 of my 10 years of being a Jehovah's Witness, I was depressed. But I knew it wasn't clinical depression as one elder suggested to me. I knew it was coming from my environment, but I didn't know exactly why and exactly where it came from. Why on earth was I so depressed? Well, I know now why I was so depressed, but back then I didn't. Now, 10 years later, having studied psychology and having become a coach, I can tell you that when you keep on telling someone that they are no good, they're not good enough, that they can't run fast enough or jump high enough, and that no matter what they do, they are good for nothing people, they are going to be depressed, believe me. And another very, very important thing that I know to be a source of depression for many people, but much more to Jehovah's Witnesses because the teaching teaches them this very thing, is when you teach people that your life will start in the future, but right now in the moment you have no life. This is the perfect recipe for depression. You could ask any personal development professionals, and I know many, and actually I've asked many that question. Ask any personal development people if it's healthy to teach people that their life will start somewhere in the future, but that right now they have to go through hell, basically. They will tell you that this is a very, very good recipe for catastrophe when it comes to depression. Because the very fact that you can't live in the moment, it's a source of depression. Because in order to heal that depression, as a matter of fact, what we teach to our clients as coaches is to learn to live in the moment. But when you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't do that. You can't live in the moment. Right now, you have to go in service. You have to do this. You have to do that. And you live later, in paradise earth. So that is a big, big recipe for depression. So what the Watchtower teaches is the exact opposite of what would make someone healthy without depression.
You see, folks, that is exactly why I invited Sylviane to the show. Folks, please visit and subscribe to her channel and go to her webpage. Thank you very much, Sylviane. Let's go on to question 5. Pedophile debacle should be a slam dunk, right? Why is it not resonating as much as people would like to see? Let's go with Becca.
Well, I'm hoping that with the Candace Conte verdict that there just hasn't been enough time yet. I'm hoping that there are more cases coming forward every day. I think that now that the walls of watchtowers have been penetrated by that verdict, I think it's just a matter of time before it really starts to come a little bit more to people's attentions, even within inside the organization. I think eventually it will become known. Maybe I'm just a little optimistic on that, but I really do think that. And yeah, I think that it's coming forth. And with JW.org on their broadcasts asking for money, and money's going out and not enough's coming in, I think that this may be a result of these lawsuits, and so maybe we will see a change in that sometime soon. I really hope so. So, other than the 2-witness rule, people are outraged by it who are outside the organization who find out about that. So I think that we're on the right track, and I think as time goes on a little bit more, we'll start to see the results of that, and hopefully make an impact on the organization. So.
Yeah, you're right. Money will definitely shake things up. Jack.
Gilbert, I want to personally thank you for asking this question, because this is one that is very dear to my heart. It just enrages me even thinking about this topic. But you asked that of the child abuse situation and why it hasn't caught on, why there's not more support for it, why more people aren't been out of shape about it. And I was talking to a couple of friends about this today, and I have to say that I think it has to do with how controlled the information is by the governing body. When I was waking up and asking about child abuse procedures and how they're handled, and are you aware of this? Are you aware of that? You know what my common experience was when talking to my friends that were regular publishers? They just didn't know. They just weren't aware of it. If it wasn't something that they dealt with or were personally connected to, if it wasn't them or their kid, they just didn't know. And I think that that's the main tool that's used by the governing body, is that you can't look at anything that's dissenting or negative that comes from a secular source about the organization, and you're not providing information regarding child abuse. So even though it is a slam dunk and the 2-witness rule has been debunked, they've been able to establish that circumstances can serve as a witness to that crime, it's not catching on because many don't know. I've tried to talk to those that are still close to me, that'll talk to me about the Australian Royal Commission. And I've told them, guys, look, it's just like news. Watch it. It's like watching Judge Judy or anything else. Watch this commission and come to your own conclusions. But that's the kicker. It's so hard to get them to watch something that shows the organization in a negative light. So the reason it has not caught on is not because witnesses don't care, but the information that's given to them through the governing body, through the publications, it's so highly controlled that they just don't have the access to these things. And most of them are not going to look at it. If you're going to get a witness to look at something regarding child abuse, you've got to kind of like put it in their face to get them to consider it. So I think it's about access to information. And the more access that we as former witnesses can get to those that are in the organization, the more you're going to start having people realize what's really going on. Thank you, Gilbert.
You're right. That is why we're doing these videos. It is having an effect. You're right. Sylviane.
I think that as Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned, is that they do not feel that the pedophilia cases are that many, They probably feel that it's blown out of proportion, that, they do not know any cases close by of pedophilia. They've never been in a congregation where they heard about pedophilia cases. I know I never heard of pedophilia cases as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there were any such cases in the congregation yet. I know now that even if they were, I probably would have never heard of it. So I don't think they can visualize correctly this concept. They feel that it's not really true because they have never experienced it to be true themselves. And another thing I think is that they believe that the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses has their best interest at heart. They do not believe that the organization, the Watchtower, has its best interest at heart. And that's another thing, that someone that's being indoctrinated cannot realize. They really think that the Society of Jehovah's Witnesses has the interest of the little publisher at heart, when we know the real interest that they have is their own.
So true. Now, have you sent in your early voting ballot to headquarters? And is it too much to ask for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to send 4 ballots to the 4 addresses listed below? Let's go with Becca.
And just to add, if you go on jw.org and in the search bar type in voting, one of the articles that pops up is from the book that is Keep Yourself in God's Love. And down at the bottom of this article, it says that how Christians do not try to interfere with elections and respect the rights to vote of others. And in the last little blurb there, it says that a Christian may go to the voting polls or booth if their conscience permits. And so in really tiny little blurb, they say, well, you can if you want to. However, we all know that Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote. So it's one of those you can, but don't. And that's on jw.org. Look it up.
Okay. Sylviane.
I'm not sure about that question. I don't think I have yet. I am not sure. You tell me.
My very first vote is going to be for GG for GB.
Well, that is it. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did producing it. I want to stop here and read you a clip that Becca wrote to me weeks ago. She says, in part, I struggled with social anxiety and couldn't even join the ministry school or comment during the Watchtower study, which made me feel even more inferior. It was that bad. Now I'm making videos, which I attribute to God's grace in freeing me from this organization. And she mentions others. You know what? God bless you, Becca. And you are a great, fine example to all of us, and you're doing great work, and we're all very, very proud of you. And hopefully you'll inspire other people and other women to do the same thing, to pick up their mantles and let their light shine like you're doing, like you did here today and you do in your channel. And please visit our friend and soon-to-be coach, Nuccio.com. And last but certainly not least, our brother Black Jack, who has recently had a run-in with some Gestapo-type elders. If you would like to be on the show, or perhaps you would like to pass out microphones, please email me at gilbert@jwcrisis.org. Join us next week as we discuss topics such as, why do Jehovah's Witnesses hate America so much? And we'll open up this envelope, why does Watchtower buy tens of thousands of dollars of medicine like AZT and Combivir? I don't know. Now, what about this question? Oral sex is a disfellowshipping offense, but elders performing Operation Ass Kiss on the circuit overseer. Is that grounds for reproof? And now, before we finish, let's go and read our accounts report.
Okay, I just want to go over the accounts with the Kingdom Hall of Happy Apostates. We have monthly income, $355, along with piñata sales, which I'll talk to you guys about pretty soon. We have $125. Additional income, which you'll see in my next videos about the PvP and WT, along with voting ballots. Our monthly expenses, we pay $144 for a lease to be in our studios. Since we believe in Jesus Christ, we pay our taxes. Beer, $19.14. The internet, $50. Office supplies, $127. The circuit overseer expense, JT's last visit, was $19.14. Now, on a very serious note, we got planned expenses. I plan to have about $1,330 due by the month of May. The convention surprise is going to cost me $650. So I'm really going to need your help on this one because it's going to be money well spent. Along with our blood drive, our piñata supplies, we'll be going over what planned expense for currency and voting balance are in the next GGG group. That's it for the reports for the Kingdom Hall of Happy Apostates.
Please bear with us as we close with this special announcement. Anthony Morris III is no longer a member of the body of Christ. His crimes against the flock have reached the heavens. May God have mercy on his soul. May those with ears listen. See you next week on the Gilbert GonZealous group. And don't forget to vote.
Gilbert GonZealous Group, purveyors of food at the proper time. Food for thought. We would like to thank Goodwill and the Salvation Army for providing Gilbert's wardrobe, and Jeffrey Jackson for his cameo appearance. If you would like to be on the Gilbert GonZealous Group and voice your opinion about the trending topics of the Jehovah's Witness world, you can reach us via our YouTube channel, JW Crisis.
That is so Satan-y.